Hey everyone, this is Tyler, and I'm continuing on my series in the church calendar. Today is Pentecost Sunday, the Christmas, if you will, of the Holy Spirit. So in the same way that Christmas is celebrating the arrival of Jesus, Pentecost celebrates the arrival of the Holy Spirit. And in a sense, this is the church's birthday too. We should have had a cake or something at our watch parties at church or at Life Group. But Pentecost means 50th. As it was the culmination of the Old Testament Feast of Weeks, a festival 50 days after Passover. The party highlighted God's giving of the law and his gift of the land, his loving guidance and abundant provision. And this is the party that's running on in the background as 120 Jesus followers, including Mary, are in this upper room in Acts chapter 2. Now they're certainly a bit sad. Jesus left them, ascending into heaven 10 days earlier. But they also have this sense of anticipation. What's coming next? Maybe they're starting to remember some of the things that Jesus had said to them. Two especially strange statements stand out to me. For them, maybe it's just starting to click. First is in John 16:7. Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, it's for your good that I am going away." In other words, Jesus is like, hey, it's good that I'm leaving. It sounds like an ex-girlfriend, right? No, this is a difficult one to understand, right? In what world is Jesus' absence better than his presence? And then in John 14:12, Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing." And they will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. So another mind bender, Jesus, the man who walked on water and raised the dead, says we will do greater things than he did. Well, before we look at how the Holy Spirit makes Jesus' strange statements a reality, there's an Old Testament story that helps us frame Pentecost. And I've experienced a lot of breakthrough thinking through this Old Testament story. And it's that of Elijah and Elisha. Now, growing up in Sunday school, I used to get these cats mixed up. But Elijah is the master, Elisha the protege, the Padawan. Before meeting Elisha, Elijah is kind of the Lone Ranger prophet. But after a showdown with 950 false prophets on Mount Carmel, probably like the most legit story in the entire Bible, 1 Kings 18, the highs and lows of this encounter leave him utterly burnt out, depleted, exhausted. He's basically done. So God tells him, okay, dude, time to pass the baton to Elisha. Elijah does 8 recorded miracles in his ministry, including some pretty intense stuff. Fire from heaven, stopping and starting droughts, raising a young boy from the dead. So Elijah meets up with Elisha. They spend a while together training. Think of, Luke and Yoda or something. And eventually, Elisha starts to realize that his master's days are coming to an end. Somehow he knows. And he asks his master, Elijah, he says, hey, before you leave, will you give me a double portion of your spirit? A double portion, that is inheritance language, something a firstborn son would expect for and ask from his father. Elisha, though, isn't asking for land or finances. He wants a double portion of Elijah's presence and power. Right? He wants Elijah's spiritual vitality. Elisha has already given up his earthly inheritance for something greater. So then Elijah, the master, ascends into heaven through a whirlwind, chariots of fire, really crazy, for 2 Kings 2. But he leaves his cloak behind, which Elisha picks up. And then he goes on, Elisha, to do not 8 miracles like his master, but 16. Double the miracles of his master. He has received the double portion of Elijah's presence and power. Not only this, but he starts a school of prophets. See, Elijah was something of a solo prophet, marched to the beat of his own drum, did his own thing. But Elisha empowers a community of prophets who do prophetic work, like calling out injustice or idolatry. So fast forward to Jesus. You have him, and he says, it's good that I go. Kind of like Elijah. Well, why? How would that be? How would it be a good thing for Jesus to leave? Isn't Jesus basically the only one holding these misfits together? But he says, unless I go away, the advocate, the Holy Spirit, will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. John 16:7. Would you rather be a disciple who walked the earth with Jesus or a believer today with the Holy Spirit? The Jesus answer is tempting. To have Jesus physically with us, that would be amazing. Imagine having Jesus here right now to help us understand some of the political and social and racial tension and turmoil that we're experiencing today. To have a level head and an invested heart like Jesus to help us think through and feel through these things. And yet, Jesus says we're better off when he's gone because we're going to get the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit does at least 3 things that Jesus could not do in a human body. First, the Holy Spirit is with every Christian. Jesus couldn't be with every person at once. The Holy Spirit is in every Christian who indwells us and transforms us. And 3, the Holy Spirit leads every Christian in control and in guidance. Jesus, during his earthly ministry, couldn't do these things in the limitations of humanity. Can you imagine trying to get an appointment with Jesus? It'd be like the DMV, but, way worse. It's like, take a number, customer 3,528,832. Wait time approximately 52 years. And even if we did get some time with him, he couldn't indwell us and transform us like the Spirit could. So Jesus says, it's better if I leave. And he also says, you will do greater works than I. How so? John 14:12 doesn't that seem strange to anybody? Greater works than Jesus, who turned water into wine, healed the blind and broken, even raised the little girl and Lazarus from the dead. So how is it possible that me, might do better works than Jesus? Is this just for super Christians living in Senegal or something? Real varsity, heavy hitters? No, this can't be true because Jesus says, whoever believes in me will do greater works, greater things. It's the same whoever is in John 3:16. Whoever believes. That by definition includes every Christian. So what does this mean and how is it possible? What does Jesus say? That they will do greater works because I'm going to the Father. I'm sending you the Spirit. So what do these greater works look like? First, they're greater in extent. Jesus' ministry spanned a small strip of land for a short amount of time, whereas Christians today span the globe. There was one Jesus, but by some estimations, there are 2.2 billion Christians, professing Christians. Think about all the acts of love and worship that just happened today, all around the world. Think about the hundreds of millions of people who gathered or who supported each other, who encouraged each other, who spoke love and peace into their community. Think of all the prayer and peaceful protests happening in our country. Most of the things that aren't going to get on the news, right? The media will highlight the worst of things, but there's so much good that happened today. So, our works are greater than Jesus in their extent, spanning the globe. They're also greater than Jesus in impact. Now, listen to me carefully here. This might blow your mind, or my mind, but because Jesus blazed a trail for us by his death and resurrection and ascension, we can now be more effective than he was in this sense. Jesus' death and exaltation ushers in a new era of clarity and power that we get to partake in. Whereas many people during Jesus' teaching had hard hearts, picture Peter in Acts chapter 2 preaching a sermon and they're cut to the heart. This is not because Peter's a better preacher. He's not. Jesus is a way better preacher. But something had changed. There's a new power at work. This is not to take away from Jesus. Far from it. Jesus is the dynamite blowing open doors of opportunity that we get to enjoy. Or think of starting a new garden. So much needs to happen before the fruit or veggies starts growing. The ground needs to be prepared, rototilled, maybe some planter boxes made, maybe good soil brought in, fences to keep the deer out, seeds or plants purchased. Finally, after all this work, the conditions are now perfect and ready for the fruit or veggies to grow. And in the same way, Jesus does all the work for the church. And now we get to enjoy so much of the fruits of his labors. To switch metaphors, think of an excavator or a bulldozer. I'm so impressed by the power of these things to be able to move dirt and rock. And literally, these things can move mountains. And can you imagine how long some of these jobs would take if it was by pickaxe and shovel? Because Jesus died and resurrected and ascended into heaven and sent us his Spirit, we can move far more ground and have far greater impact than we know. You don't have to be a super Christian. You just need to sit down in the seat and by the Holy Spirit, start moving ground. Like Elijah with Elisha, consider this, Christian. We have been given a double portion of Jesus' Spirit. And we, the church, will do far more miracles, far more acts of love and kindness, listening and healing, far more than the physical Jesus could have ever done. And he's actually doing it, though, through us. So, church, let's walk in that humble boldness and healing power. Particularly right now, as our country feels like it's fraying and falling apart. This is so important that we recognize we have that double portion of the Spirit, and then we walk in that humble, listening, but bold power. Grace and peace, friends.